Welcome to a new episode of 6th grade math. So today we are going to start a new topic, and this is going to be something that you are going to be using for the rest of your math career, kind of like proportions. So today we are going to talk about ratios. Can you say that word for me? Ratios. That's how you say that. And then ratios are kind of like what's called multiplicative comparisons. Multiplicative is that word. So ratios repeat themselves over and over. So that's where the multiplicative comparisons comes from. Okay? So a ratio, again, ratio is a comparison of two quantities, and quantities are numbers. So ratios compare numbers. And we need to remember that order matters. We've talked about this before. Order matters, especially in ratios. And we are always going to label our ratios. So very specific, kind of like in proportions, we label our proportions, we're going to label our ratios. So let's actually look at an example so you kind of understand what I mean. So we're going to be looking down here, at the bottom. We're going to use this example to help us write ratios. So there are different ways to write ratios. So in this example, it says for every one cat, there are 3 dogs. So if I have one cat, there's going to also be 3 dogs. And then if I have another cat, there's going to be 3 dogs. And then if I have another cat, there's going to be 3 dogs. It's going to happen over and over and over again. So the way that we're going to write ratios, you could write it with a 1, with the word 2, 3. So you're comparing the 1 to the 3. And again, order matters. So in this problem, the 1 came first, then the 3. The 1 represents cats, so I'm going to label it cat, 1 cat, and 3 dogs. So one way you can write ratios is with the word 2. This one is going to be the most important, so we're going to put a star here. This is how we're typically going to see ratios, okay? With a colon. So those 2 dots are a colon. That's how we're typically going to see ratios. And again, we're going to label, so 1 cat, 3 dogs, and we're keeping the order from the sentence. 1 cat, 3 dogs. And then lastly, we could even write a ratio like a fraction, okay? And again, I'm going to label it kind of like what we did with proportions, cat, dog. And then if we did have to set up a proportion, we could then just kind of put our equal sign and go on from there. We're not going to right now, but that's another reason why we want to label that. All right, let's go on the inside and do some practice problems. So our first situation, it says a bag has 3 purple marbles, 4 green marbles, and 5 blue marbles. So the first thing says write the ratio of purple to green. So we have purple first, then green. So that is the order my answer is going to be. My answer is going to be purple, green. So how many purple were there? It says right up here there were 3 purple. How many green were there? It says there were 4. So how many purple? 3. How many green? 4. So that is our ratio right there. Done. Finished. All right, the next one says write the ratio of blue marbles to green marbles. So blue was 5 and green was 4. And we're going to keep the order. Blue, green. How many blue? 5. How many green? 4. So there's our ratio for that. Okay. Write the ratio of blue. How many blue? 5. Now to the total. So I have purple, green, and blue. So that means I need to do purple plus green plus blue to find that total. So 3 plus 4 plus 5. 3 and 4 gives me 7 plus 5, that would be 12. So my ratio is blue to the total. I had 5 blue, 12 total, so that would be my ratio. And it's that easy. You just have to make sure you put them in the right order and you actually pay attention to what it's asking. All right, so this is what it would look like in a word problem. An artist mixes 2 cups of blue paint with 3 scoops of red paint to make purple. If the artist decided to make more purple in a larger batch, which, grab our highlighter, ratio below would be equivalent to the ratio of blue to red paint. So right here, when it says ratio, it is telling us the order they want us to work with. So in this sentence right here, it says blue to red. So in the sentence that says ratio, right here, it says blue, red. So blue goes first, red goes second. And then we just match. How much blue was there? Well, it says right here, there was 2 scoops of blue and 3 scoops of red. So 2, 3. Now, if I'm looking at my answer choices, none of them say 2, 3. And it said equivalent, so I want them to be equivalent. Now, I really need you to understand that B is not the same thing. We just talked about order, and that is not the right order. That is our Joe. Okay? You cannot switch the order of a ratio and say they are equivalent. So if you pick that, you're telling me you weren't paying attention. So now, you're like, Ms. Cups, now what do we do? Okay, we're going to take that ratio 2, 3, and we are going to skip count that ratio to find an equivalent ratio, because I am going to continue on that pattern. So on this side, we're going to count by 2s. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And I already noticed, if I'm looking at D, my first number is a 5. Can I get to a 5? No, not with the 2. So that one's wrong. Because again, I've got 2, 4, 6. 5 doesn't match. So I could look, can I get to 18 or 12? Yes, I can. So let's keep going. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now I need to go do the other side and see if that matches as well. So now we're counting by 3s. And I need to go ahead and make sure these are all ratios. So they should have colons. Okay? So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So this is my ratio, 12, 18. So the 12 matches, but the 15 does not. So A is not my answer. So let's just double check C. So I need to skip counting by 2s to get to 18. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay, let me put my dots. And then on the other side, remember we were counting by 3s. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. So, does that entire ratio match? Yes, it does. So that is my answer. All right, let's go to the next one. At Bangs Middle School, the, keyword, what is it? Ratio of boys to girls enrolled in Spanish is 5:4. Which ratio could represent the number of boys to girls in the Spanish class at Bangs? There are 2 correct answers. So this one's a little bit different. So it says which ratio could be boys to girls. So we know we are going to be doing boys to girls because it says the order. Okay, and up here it says boys to girls, but it doesn't say how many boys and girls. So it says the ratio of boys to girls enrolled in Spanish is 5:4. We just talked about we can use that word to show a ratio, okay? So now we're going to match that order. So the first word that we saw was boys, so that first number matches. So boys was first, 5 was first. So how many boys were there? 5. So girls was second, 4 was second, So now those match. So how many girls were there? 4. So 5 boys, 4 girls. I see a Joe Schmo. Okay, what is it? It's A, because it's not the right order, and we just said order matters. So that is our Joe. You cannot switch the order of a ratio. All right, so now we can skip count like we just practiced. Okay, so let's write 5 over 4 over here so we can skip count. Okay, on this side, we're gonna write 5. So 5, 10, notice I can already get rid of B. 15, 20. Okay, all of these are looking good so far. So now on the other side, we're gonna count by 4. Make sure we put our ratios. All right, so 4, 8, 12, 16. So my 15 goes with 12, so that one works. Obviously, D is not correct. And then I also have 20 to 16. Now, as an answer, if I was going to say this ratio out loud, I would say 15 to 12, like the word 2. So I would say 15 to 12. That's how we would say it. We would say it like it's written here, and this one would be 20 to 16. So the word 2, not to the number. Ooh, sorry. Last one. Cheyenne is making a recipe that uses 5 cups of beans and 2 cups of carrots. Which combination could represent the number of beans and carrots in the recipe? So this one's a little bit different. It does not say ratio anywhere, but we can see that we have 5 cups of beans, 2 cups of carrots, and then all of my answer choices have that as well. And it wants to know which ones could work. So that means in a recipe, every time we do 5 and 2, it's gonna stay the same. So order matters. So we had 5 cups of beans first, so beans and carrots. And you can also see that in all of the answer choices. Beans comes first, then carrots. So that's pretty easy. How much beans? It said 5. How much carrots? It said 2. Okay, so this one, numbers are kind of big. So this is going to be kind of a process of elimination. All right, so right now I'm going to look at D. Notice they just added a 0 to our numbers. So if I did that to 5 and 2, that would be 50 and 20. And notice they switched those. So D is out. Okay. All right. Now I can skip count and notice on E, the 14 is a pretty small number. So I'm going to try and get there first. Okay. So on this side, the 14 is carrots. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And then I'm going to go put my colons for my ratios. And then I can skip count this side for my 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So in that ratio, 14 and 35 go together. And notice on E, 70 is with 14. So that's not right. I want to point out another thing. Looking at C, it says 13 carrots. Can we even get to 13 carrots? No, we cannot. So we can also get rid of C, and then there are 2 correct answers. So by process of elimination, I know A and B are going to be my answers. You could keep skip counting all the way to 34 and 48, and then on this side, you could keep skip counting, but process of elimination, we can stop there.